The forest was silent, not peaceful silent, but the kind that made your chest feel tight. Cold wind whispered through the tall trees, carrying the sound of something broken. And in the middle of it all sat a stroller. It looked out of place, abandoned, forgotten. Inside it, wrapped in a thin blanket, was a man. His name was Daniel, and the woman walking away from him was his wife. She didn't look back. Not once. Her heels crushed dry leaves as she walked faster, almost as if she was afraid to stop, afraid she might change her mind. But she didn't. She reached the car, slammed the door, and drove off, leaving Daniel behind. A year ago, things weren't like this. Daniel had everything: a decent job, a small but beautiful house, and a wife he trusted more than anything. Her name was Clara. To the outside world, they looked perfect, but behind closed doors, cracks had already begun to form. It started small. Late-night arguments, cold silences at dinner, the kind of tension you could feel even without words. Daniel tried to fix things. He bought flowers, planned trips, apologized, even when he didn't know what he did wrong. But Clara had already made up her mind. What Daniel didn't know was that Clara had a plan, a cruel one, not driven by anger alone, but by something deeper, something darker. It was a rainy night when everything changed. Daniel had just come home, tired, soaked, still trying to hold on to a marriage that was already slipping away. Clara greeted him with something unusual, a smile, warm, soft, the kind he hadn't seen in months. "Let's go out tomorrow," she said. "Somewhere quiet, just us." Daniel's heart lit up. Maybe, just maybe, this was a new beginning. He said yes without hesitation. The next day, they drove for hours, further and further away from the city. The roads became narrow, then empty, then nothing but trees. Daniel noticed it. "This place is remote," he said, trying to sound casual. Clara smiled. "That's the point." They stopped deep in the woods. No houses, no signal, no sound except the wind. Clara opened the trunk. Inside was a stroller. Daniel frowned. "Why do we have this?" Clara didn't answer immediately. She just looked at him, long, cold. "You're tired, Daniel," she said softly. "You need rest." Before he could respond, everything went dark. When Daniel opened his eyes, he couldn't move. His body felt weak, heavy. His hands barely responded. He tried to speak, but his voice came out broken. And then he saw it, the stroller. He was inside it. Panic rushed through him. "What is this?" he whispered. Clara stood in front of him, calm, too calm. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "You become a burden." Her words hit harder than anything else. Daniel's eyes widened. "No, Clara, please." But she shook her head. "I've already made my decision." And then she turned around and walked away. The sound of her footsteps faded, then disappeared, leaving Daniel alone in the middle of nowhere, helpless, abandoned. Hours passed, or maybe days. He couldn't tell. The cold crept into his bones. Hunger twisted his stomach. Fear wrapped around him like chains. At some point, he stopped shouting, stopped hoping someone would hear him, because deep down, he knew no one was coming. But Daniel didn't die, because sometimes, when everything is taken from you, something else wakes up, a survival instinct, a fire, a refusal to disappear. The first movement was small, a twitch of his fingers, then his arm. Then, slowly, painfully, he forced himself out of the stroller. He fell to the ground. Hard, but he didn't stop. He crawled, inches at a time, through dirt, through pain, through hopelessness. Every second felt impossible, but he kept going, because giving up was no longer an option. Night fell, darkness swallowed the forest. Strange sounds echoed around him. Animals, branches snapping. The unknown, but Daniel kept moving. By morning, he was no longer the same man. Something inside him had changed, something stronger, something unbreakable. And far away, in a comfortable apartment, Clara moved on with her life. She told people he left, that he disappeared, that he couldn't handle life anymore. And everyone believed her, because no one expects the truth to be worse. Months passed, then a year. Clara had everything she wanted: freedom, peace, a new life, until one day, everything shattered. She was standing in line at a grocery store, scrolling through her phone, half listening to the chatter around her, and then she saw it, a magazine right in front of her. On the cover was a face she knew. Her hands froze, her breath stopped, her heart skipped, because the man staring back at her was supposed to be dead. It was Daniel, but he wasn't weak anymore. He wasn't broken. He looked powerful, confident, unrecognizable, and beneath his picture were the words, "From nothing to empire, the man who survived the impossible." Clara dropped the phone, because the past had just come back. And this time, it wasn't helpless. Clara's hands trembled as she picked up the magazine. Her eyes refused to believe what they were seeing, but her heart already knew. It was him, Daniel, alive. "No, this isn't possible," she whispered. People around her glanced over, confused, but Clara didn't notice. She was frozen in time. The man on the cover didn't look like the Daniel she remembered. That version of him had been weak, tired, dependent. This man, he looked unstoppable. Sharp suit, confident eyes, a presence that demanded attention. Clara flipped the magazine open. Her fingers shook as she searched for answers. And there it was, the story. 1 year ago, he was left with nothing. No support, no safety, no future. Clara's breathing became uneven. Today, he is the founder of one of the fastest growing companies in the country. Her vision blurred. "No," she muttered again. The article continued, detail after detail, piece by piece, revealing the truth she never imagined. That night in the forest wasn't the end of Daniel. It was the beginning. After crawling for hours, barely alive, Daniel had collapsed near a dirt path. By pure chance, someone found him, an old man, a retired paramedic, living alone in a cabin miles away. He wasn't supposed to be there that night. He had taken a different route, a random decision, a small change, but it saved Daniel's life. The old man didn't ask questions, didn't wait for explanations. He acted. He carried Daniel inside, treated his wounds, fed him, protected him. For weeks, Daniel couldn't even stand. His body had been pushed beyond its limits. But healing began, slowly, painfully, and during those quiet nights, when the world was asleep, Daniel stared at the ceiling, thinking, not about revenge, not yet, but about one thing. Why? Why would the person he trusted the most do something like that? The question haunted him, but it also fueled him, because once the pain faded, something else replaced it. Clarity. Daniel realized something important. He had spent his entire life depending on others, seeking approval, trying to fix things that weren't his fault. And where did that lead him? To a forest, left to die. That truth changed everything. The old man, his savior, became his teacher, not in words, but in actions. He lived simply, quietly, without needing anyone. And Daniel learned how to survive, how to think, how to rebuild. Weeks turned into months. By the time Daniel fully recovered, he had already made a decision. He wouldn't go back to his old life, because that life was built on illusions. Instead, he would build something new, something no one could take from him. He left the cabin with nothing, no money, no connections, no identity even, because officially, Daniel didn't exist anymore. But that didn't stop him. He took small jobs, worked day and night, saved every penny, learned new skills, and most importantly, he stayed silent. No social media, no contact, no past, just focus. There were days he wanted to quit, days when exhaustion crushed him, days when memories of Clara came rushing back. But every time, he remembered the forest, the cold, the helplessness, the betrayal, and he kept going. 1 year, 365 days of rebuilding, until finally everything changed. Daniel started a small business. It wasn't much at first, just an idea, a risk, but it worked. Then it grew, faster than anyone expected, because Daniel wasn't the same man anymore. He didn't hesitate, didn't doubt himself, didn't wait for permission. He took control, and people noticed. Investors came, opportunities followed, and suddenly the man who had nothing had everything. Back in the grocery store, Clara felt her world collapsing. The life she thought she escaped was coming back, but worse, because now Daniel wasn't someone she could control. He was someone the world admired, someone powerful, someone untouchable. She flipped to the last page of the article, hoping, praying, maybe he forgot, maybe he moved on, maybe he never mentioned her. But then she saw it, a single line, short, simple. Some betrayals don't destroy you. They reveal who you're meant to become. Clara's stomach dropped because she knew that wasn't just a quote. It was a message for her. And for the first time in a year, Clara felt something she hadn't felt before. Fear, real fear, because the man she abandoned was no longer lost. He had found himself. And now he was everywhere. Clara couldn't breathe. The noise of the grocery store faded into nothing. All she could hear was her own heartbeat, loud, fast, uncontrollable. She left everything behind, the cart, the groceries, even her phone, and walked out. That single line from the article kept echoing in her mind. Some betrayals don't destroy you. They reveal who you're meant to become. It wasn't just a quote. It was a warning. That night, Clara didn't sleep. Every shadow in her apartment felt different. Every sound made her flinch, because for the first time, she wasn't in control anymore. The next morning, she did something she hadn't done in a year. She searched his name, Daniel, and instantly, the internet exploded with his face. Interviews, articles, videos, everywhere she looked, there he was. But one thing stood out the most. He never talked about his past. Not once. No mention of his wife. No mention of the forest. No mention of what happened. It was as if that part of his life had been erased. Clara felt a strange mix of relief and unease. Relief because maybe he wasn't coming for her. Unease because silence can be more dangerous than anger. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing happened. No calls, no messages, no confrontation. And slowly, Clara started to relax. Maybe I was overthinking, she told herself. Maybe he really moved on. But deep down, something didn't feel right, because people like Daniel don't just forget. One evening, as she returned home, she noticed something strange. The door, it was slightly open. Clara froze. She was sure she had locked it. Her heart started racing again. "Hello," she called out. No response. Slowly, she stepped inside. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Nothing was out of place. Nothing was missing. And yet, the air felt different. Heavy. She walked into the living room. Then the kitchen. Then the bedroom. Nothing until she saw it. On the table. A small envelope. Her name written on it. Clara's hand shook as she picked it up. Inside was a single piece of paper. No long message, no explanation, just 5 words. "I remember everything, Clara." Her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the floor, because in that moment, every illusion shattered. He didn't forget. He was waiting, watching, planning. But what scared her the most was not knowing when, or how, or why. Days turned into paranoia. Every knock on the door made her jump. Every unknown number made her panic. She started looking over her shoulder, everywhere, at work, on the street, even at home, because now she knew this wasn't over. Meanwhile, miles away, Daniel stood in front of a massive glass window. The city stretched beneath him. Lights, movement, power, everything he had built, but his expression was calm, too calm. Someone entered the room, a business partner. "Big meeting tomorrow," the man said. "Investors are excited." Daniel nodded. but his mind was elsewhere. "Everything okay?" the man asked. Daniel turned slightly. A faint smile appeared. "Everything is exactly as it should be." Back in her apartment, Clara made a decision. She couldn't live like this anymore. She needed answers. So she did the one thing she feared the most. She reached out. She found his company's contact, requested a meeting. Her message was simple: "We need to talk." She didn't expect a response, but she got one. Fast. Too fast. "Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Clara stared at the screen. Her reflection looked back at her, but it didn't look the same. Fear had changed her, just like the forest had changed Daniel. The next day, she stood in front of his building. Tall, modern, intimidating, just like him now. She took a deep breath and walked in. Step by step, her past and present began to collide. She was finally going to face him, but what she didn't know was that Daniel had one final truth, a truth that would change everything she believed, and this time there would be no escape. Clara's heels echoed across the polished floor. Each step felt heavier than the last. The building was silent, too quiet, too perfect. At the reception desk, a woman smiled politely. "Do you have an appointment?" Clara swallowed. "Yes, with Daniel." The receptionist's expression shifted slightly. Respect. Recognition. "Of course," she said. "He's expecting you." Those words sent a chill down Clara's spine. He's expecting you. Not surprised. Not curious. Expecting. As if this moment had always been part of the plan. She was led to a private elevator. Glass walls. A view of the entire city. But Clara couldn't enjoy it. Her mind was racing. Memories flashed. The forest. The stroller. The moment she walked away. She closed her eyes. But it didn't help, because now there was no running from it. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. And there he was, Daniel, standing at the far end of the room. Calm, still, powerful. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Time felt frozen. Clara's chest tightened. "You look different," she finally said. Daniel smiled faintly. "So do you." His voice was steady. No anger. No emotion. And somehow, that made it worse. Clara took a step forward. I saw the article." Daniel nodded. "I figured you would." Silence again. Clara clenched her hands. "I need to know something." Daniel gestured toward a chair. "Sit." She hesitated, but obeyed, because deep down, she knew she had no control here. Daniel walked slowly toward her, each step deliberate, measured. Then he stopped, just a few feet away. "Ask your question," he said. Clara's voice trembled. "Why didn't you come back?" Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Back to what?" The question hit her harder than she expected. "To your life," she said. "To everything you had." Daniel let out a quiet breath. That life didn't exist anymore. Clara shook her head. "No, you could have told people the truth. You could have—" "Destroyed you?" Daniel interrupted calmly. She froze. "Yes," he continued. "I could have." His eyes locked onto hers. "But I didn't." "Why?" Clara whispered. And that's when everything changed. Daniel stepped closer. "Because that night," he said slowly, "wasn't just about what you did." Clara frowned. "I don't understand." Daniel's expression didn't change. "I knew." The words hung in the air. Clara blinked. "What?" "I knew what you were planning." Her heart stopped. "That's not possible," she said quickly. "I never told anyone." "You didn't have to." Daniel reached into his desk, pulled out something, a small device. He placed it on the table. Clara stared at it, confused. "A recorder," Daniel said. Her blood ran cold. "I started noticing things months before that night," he continued. "The way you acted, the things you said, the distance." Clara couldn't speak, so I prepared. Her hand began to shake. You're lying." Daniel didn't react. "I recorded our conversations," he said. "Every argument, every hint." Clara's breathing became uneven. "And the night you suggested that trip," he added, "I already knew something was wrong." "Then why did you go?" she asked, almost desperately. Daniel's eyes darkened slightly. Because I needed to see how far you'd go. Silence. Heavy. Unbearable. And now you know, Clara whispered. Daniel nodded once. Yes. Clara looked down. Her entire body felt weak. You let it happen, she said slowly. You let me do that to you. Daniel didn't deny it. I needed the truth, he said. Clara laughed nervously. A broken sound. This is insane. But Daniel leaned closer. No, he said quietly. What's insane is what you don't know yet. Clara looked up, fear returning stronger than ever. What do you mean? Daniel straightened. The story everyone knows, he said, is only half of it. Her chest tightened. What are you talking about? Daniel paused, then said something she never expected. The man who found me in the forest. Clara held her breath. Wasn't there by accident. Everything inside her stopped. What? Daniel's eyes locked onto hers. I made sure he would be. Clara's mind went blank. That night, Daniel continued, I wasn't just surviving. He took a step back. I was setting everything in motion. Clara's voice barely came out. You planned this? Daniel didn't answer immediately, but his silence said everything. And in that moment, Clara realized something terrifying. She thought she was in control that night. She thought she was ending his story. But in reality, she had just played her part. In his. Clara sat frozen. Every word Daniel said echoed inside her mind like a warning. She finally understood too late. You planned it, she whispered. Daniel didn't deny it. He simply walked toward the glass window again, looking at the city like it belonged to him. I didn't plan betrayal, he said calmly. I planned truth. Clara stood up abruptly. No, you're twisting this. I left you there because you believed I was weak. Daniel interrupted. Silence. He turned slightly. And that was your mistake. Clara's breathing became uneven. You're trying to justify it. You're trying to make me the villain. Daniel finally faced her fully. No, Clara. A pause. You did that yourself. The room felt colder. He pressed a button on his desk. A screen lit up behind him. Clara's eyes widened. Security footage. Conversations. Messages. Every moment she thought was private. Displayed clearly. How? She whispered. Daniel spoke softly. I told you. I prepared. Clara stumbled back. This is illegal. You can't just... I didn't need to do anything illegal, he said. You did everything willingly. The screen shifted again, showing Clara's messages, her plans, her suggestions, every step leading to that forest. Clara shook her head. No, this isn't real. But it was. And then Daniel said the final truth. You didn't abandon me in the woods, Clara. A pause. You delivered me exactly where I needed to be. Clara's eyes filled with tears. What are you saying? Daniel stepped closer, voice steady, controlled. I was already building something before that night. He gestured around the room. This company, this life, it didn't start after the forest. Clara looked confused. It started when I realized who I married. Her knees weakened. I saw patterns, Daniel continued. Control, manipulation, isolation. And I knew one day you would try something extreme. Clara whispered, So you let me? Daniel nodded slightly. I didn't let you. I guided it. The silence that followed was unbearable. Clara laughed weakly. A broken sound. This is insane. You're saying you turned me into a criminal on purpose? Daniel's expression softened slightly, not with pity, but certainty. No, I'm saying you revealed yourself. Clara's voice cracked. Then what do you want from me now? That question hung in the air. Heavy, final. Daniel walked back to his desk, opened a folder. Inside was a document. Thick, official. He placed it on the table. Clara didn't move. Read it, he said. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. It was a legal settlement. Her eyes scanned rapidly, confusion turning into shock. There was no prison, no police, no public exposure. Instead, a single condition. Clara must disappear from his life permanently. No contact, No mention, no interference. And in return, her past will remain buried. Clara looked up. You're letting me go? Daniel nodded. Not because I forgive you. A pause. But because you are no longer relevant to my future. The words hit harder than anger ever could. Clara's voice barely came out. So that's it. Daniel turned back toward the window. That's it. Silence filled the room. Clara stood there for a moment, lost, empty, broken in a different way than before. Then she asked one last question. Did you ever love me? Daniel didn't turn around. A long pause. Then quietly, I loved the version of you that didn't exist. That was all. Clara nodded slowly, tears falling silently. She turned around and walked out. No anger, no shouting, no final confrontation, just acceptance. As the door closed behind her, Daniel remained by the window, watching the city. But this time, there was no emotion on his face, only silence. Because some stories don't end with revenge. They end with realization that not every betrayal creates a victim. Some create something far more dangerous, a mind that never forgets, and a future that no one can undo.